Good morning and welcome back to The Informed Entrepreneur. My name is Heike Heyman with IdeaShare Business Coaching, and today we're speaking with Carrie DeVivo of Excel Pilates, Annapolis. Good to see you. Thank you for hosting us here today.
Thank you so much for being here.
I specifically mentioned the Annapolis part because you actually started out in DC. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of your business?
Absolutely. In 1998, Lisa McLaughlin and I opened what was then called Excel Movement Studios in Northeast Washington, D.C. So that was in 98, and in 2002 we opened a studio in Annapolis, which was always a goal of ours. And in 2009 we restructured the business so that Lisa is sole owner of D.C. and I'm sole owner of Annapolis, but we still co-direct our teacher training program. And yet just a few years back, Alexandra Adams opened Excel Pilates Northern Virginia. So while we are independent businesses, we are affiliates and we enjoy a lot of professional camaraderie and support.
And you mentioned that your clients also have a benefit that they can go from one studio to another depending on where they live and work. So this is actually a really convenient setup, especially in the DC area where a lot of people work in one place and live somewhere else.
That's true, and also for our apprentices who study with us in our training program, they do have the benefit of studying with the other instructors in the other studios and doing some hours in those as well.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned something earlier about second level, third level generation in terms of the training. Can you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I'm considered a second generation teacher, which means that if you think of the lineage of study to Joseph Pilates, so when Joseph Pilates passed away, the line of teachers who continued his studio and his work would be first generation teachers. That's who I'm trained by, so I'm therefore considered a second generation teacher. And most of the teachers at my studio are trained by me, and they are therefore third generation teachers. The goal is that we're trying to keep the work as true and close to the source as possible. So our continuing education we also do there's only a few first generation teachers still, so first or second generation teachers.
Okay.
Primarily.
So it's really a matter of talking about the quality of the instruction as closely related to the original instructions by Mr. Pilates, who is the namesake of this. The other thing that you had mentioned is that you had a lot of considerations when you were reconfiguring your business. And some things that made you think about moving ahead and others that maybe made you wait. Can you talk a little bit about how that process evolved and what someone else might be able to learn from that?
Absolutely. First, backtracking slightly, if you're going into a business that involves a partnership, may you be as lucky as I have been. And what was wonderful is that Lisa and I had a few years of working together prior to opening the business. So in that we were able to see firsthand that we shared a lot in terms of work ethic and values and missions and passions and priorities. So our business relationship was fantastic. And when we decided to restructure the business, it was really just a natural progression, and it was a very natural result of efforts of many years. And we wanted to still stay connected in some ways. So when the idea first was thought of, it wasn't quite the right time. Things didn't quite line up to make it an easy transition, but when in fact we did execute it, it was very seamless and very positive, and we continue to maintain a lot of value in our relationship with our businesses. And it's wonderful when you're a small business owner. It's a bit of a subculture, and it's really wonderful to have people who understand that and you can seek advice from, share or offer advice for others, and support from as well.
Right, and that is something that not every business owner has right from the bat, but certainly something to look for, and that can take all sorts of shapes. It could be a close relationship with your CPA, with a mentor from the same industry or another, or even a business coach. So you had also mentioned that the values were very important in your decision-making process of having a business partner. But then you mentioned something else, some other advice that I found really interesting earlier. Can you repeat that?
Yes. So this is perhaps one of my most coveted pieces of advice that I received indirectly from the source. And that is, when you can no longer do what you do with integrity, it's time to move on. So understanding why you're choosing to pursue business. What is your mission? What are your goals? What is your true reason for doing what you do? And then making sure that nothing sways you. And that you keep that in sight and you stay true to that. It's easy. People will very happily tell you how to run your business and give their opinions of what you should do. And people will very happily want to make things work for them. But continuing to truly not sacrifice or alter your integrity to do what you do is extremely important, and it is not without effort and is not without conscious decisions.
Right.
And it's not easy.
Yes.
But it's extremely important.
And it does mean that sometimes you have to say no to a request, even if it's your favorite client or customer or patient or whatever in your business. You call the people you work with, they may ask you for something that takes you off track. So
Right. And it can be scary to hold the course, because you could see, oh, this could definitely have immediate benefit, but truly down the line, why are you doing what you're doing?
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Something else we talked about before the camera went on was location. And we've all heard the adage of location, 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 but what does that mean? And you mentioned some specifics of what you considered when you decided to locate here.
Right. I had my eye on the specific part of Annapolis, which is called West Annapolis, for quite some years. And my search was an active search for at least 2 years. Definitely understanding what your client, in my case, or customers' need is important. So understanding what's going to make a location appealing to them. Is it parking? Is it easy access from a highway? Is it that it's a well-lit space if they're coming to and fro in the evening? Is it literally easy access? Is there like 3 flights of stairs, but that doesn't fit the bill for your customer or client? So factoring in that, and then also thinking about, as a business owner, you will spend a lot of time on premise. So be realistic with where that location is. I did commute for 10 years for a good distance, and it is really nice to be closer to home now. And it makes me a lot more, I can be much more available and with my business more accessible to me in proximity. So that is definitely a consideration.
Very interesting. Did you work with the commercial realtor to find the location and to walk you through the contracts?
Yes, I did.
That was helpful.
That was helpful, and definitely a good way to get word on spaces and what's coming on the market, and definitely finding someone who really hears what you're looking for and understands what you're looking for will save a lot of time.
Right.
So you're not running out looking at spaces that are just not going to fit what you're looking for.
Yes. So it's the selection of your business counterparts, in this case the commercial realtor, is important, just like it would be to make sure that you have the right fit for your home and the next search for a realtor. Picking the right person is very important. Now you have...
Yes, and just to add to that, one that's skilled in negotiating contracts.
Yes, very important. Absolutely. Now you have a branded slogan here.
Yes.
What did it take to come up with something like that, and is that a part of a bigger business plan, or tell us a bit about the history of that?
So yes, this is a trademark slogan, empower your body, empower your mind, and it basically summarizes the mindset that we've always had with the business, which is that Pilates is a mind-body form of exercise, and that we approach it very much into empowering people. That it is something to help people learn more about themselves, their bodies, learn what they can do, and go even beyond that. And so to trademark something, you do have to go through a process with a trademark attorney, filing applications and whatnot, and fees. And then when you do have a trademark, a registered trademark, you also are responsible in policing it. So if there is someone who's using something that's very similar, you do have to send them a letter informing them that they can no longer use it, and make sure that they follow through. And so it is part of your job when you own a registered trademark to police it.
Have you actually had to do that?
We have several times.
Wow.
Yes, and that's where that initial trademark attorney comes in handy, because that individual says, yes, this is an applicable case, no, this is not, and this is how you proceed from there. We've always had cooperation on the other end, so we've never had to, go into any litigation, but we have several times needed to inform people. And always they were completely unaware that they were
Right.
really encroaching on the trademark.
Yes, because your simple Google search might not bring it up.
Right.
It might take a few extra steps. Now, you mentioned earlier that you have a team of 6.
Right.
And that they're mostly trained by you. One thing that I think we didn't mention is that you personally have a subspecialty. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, the pink ribbon?
Oh yeah, so another one of my teachers and myself did complete the pink ribbon program, which means we went through some extra training in working with breast cancer survivors and post-surgery. So just a little extra study in that regard. Our basic training covers us with understanding how to work with a variety of injuries and issues and health issues. But this was just very specific for breast cancer survivors.
Okay. Are there a lot of subspecialties within the Pilates world?
I reckon there can start to be. I've been doing Pilates for 30 years and I've been teaching it for over 20. And I am very dedicated to doing continuing education. And what I love about it is you're always learning more. And this is so true as a student as well, but you're always learning more and you learn so much through your students. And sometimes you'll have someone come in who has something going on that you've just never seen before. And you learn from your colleagues and you learn from your students, and you can really look at the areas that you want to grow as a teacher and find continuing education courses that touch on that. And there are some that specialize, like that specific training was working with specifically breast cancer survivors, but I've also seen ones just working with cancer patients in general. So there are options like that to just continue to deepen your knowledge.
Right, right. And when it comes to Pilates, if you wanted to learn it, you don't actually have to have one of these apparatus at home, because there are a lot of mat exercises, correct?
Right, so the full Pilates method incorporates both the mat work, which is the foundation, and the apparatus. So if you want to do Pilates, it is a method that incorporates both. While the mat is the foundation, and once you learn it, it's yours for life, and that's what's lovely, is you will always have it. The apparatus is going to help you learn how to do those exercises better, deeper. The springs that you work with most of the apparatus, helps lean towards some of the goals with elongation of muscles, decompressing joints, and fun. So it lets you defy gravity and do things you never think you would be doing. I like to say to clients sometimes in certain exercises, just think right now, is anybody else in the world doing what you're doing? Probably not. Probably not. Just you. And it's fun. So it incorporates both. But yes, that mat work is lovely because it's portable. We really encourage our students to practice at home and take that work on the road with them on the vacation.
What's the age range you work with? And what's the, other demographics like male, female?
Right. So we work with, right now our youngest students are about 13, and we've worked with students well into their 80s. We definitely have more female students than male students, though we're continuously encouraging men to get involved in Pilates. It was developed by a man for men. It is designed for both men and women, and it's highly beneficial for both and for all ages. When you work with the younger bodies that aren't fully developed yet, we're not really working with the springs yet because we're going to work without resistance.
Right.
But as they get older and they get the permission to work with the resistance, we can incorporate that as well.
Right. And besides the large units, you also have some smaller devices that are outside of the view of the camera. But can you talk a little bit about some of the other things that I see in the studio here?
Yes. So there's all kinds of things, even just down to those little pieces on the wall. And everything is designed to help us. It's very specific. Nothing's just haphazard. Nothing's like, oh, I'll try this, try that.
Right.
This work is the life's work of Joseph Pilates. He lived to his 80s. He worked on this through his life. And it's very, very sound. And it's a method. So everything relates. So what we like our students to understand is that it's our job to make them as independent of us as possible. It is also, I see it as my job to help them relate exercises one to another. So I kind of joke around and say Pilates is the same 5 letters all jumbled up to make a language, but it kind of is. It kind of is. And that each exercise is in conversation with another. So you might get one exercise where someone's really having a hard time understanding like how to execute it and put it all together. And we show them that they've basically done it already. They've just done it in other places.
Right.
And so sometimes we'll choose one piece of apparatus to help them make that discovery. Sometimes we'll choose an exercise on another piece of apparatus just to introduce an idea, and then let them try it on the mat with no apparatus support, which is even harder.
Okay.
You know, sometimes people think, oh, it's harder to use the apparatus. No, not necessarily always the case.
Okay.
And then you have things that are, you know, very specific name, like back here, those are called foot correctors. Well, they're really great for correcting your feet and your posture. You look over there, that's called a neck stretcher. Oh, you put that on, it looks really crazy, but it actually doesn't stretch the neck, it works the core. And elongates the neck. It doesn't, I shouldn't say it doesn't stretch the neck, it stretches the neck. It doesn't stress the neck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's all about creating uniform development in the body and elongation.
And you mentioned earlier that you could have people from completely different skill levels in the same class because they're more or less doing the same exercises with slight modifications that make them harder for one than another.
To a degree, we are very, very careful to level match here. We really offer sessions no more than 4 people, and we won't put 4 together if they're not at a similar level. But when people start Pilates, not necessarily in the same session, so you haven't been exercising for 20 years, and so you just got an Olympic gold. You're going to start on the same page. You're going to start at the same place because it's a cumulative method. So the information that you get layered in will probably progress at a different tempo, but it's the same information if everyone starts on page 1. So even if you have a high aptitude of physical fitness, you don't start here. You have to start here and build up to that point because it's truly a cumulative method. Yeah.
Let's pivot back to the business side of things. You have a team. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges of finding the right team members, of training them, not just in the Pilates method, but in terms of how you want your business to be represented by them and anything relating to just employee relations?
Right. It's difficult. Definitely having a business with employees versus having a business without is very different, you know, and it should be a very conscious decision. And I think discussing with people, and like if you don't want to have employees, there's pros and cons. If you want to have employees, there's pros and cons. And speaking to people of whether it's the same industry or not who have experienced both, you can learn a lot from them. Again, I have in my, when I hire people, I tell them what the studio mission is, and that this is the common goal, and this is something that we all have to work toward. And that, again, keeping with that mission, keeping that clarity, and making sure that that's clear with others, I think is very valuable and helps in terms of making sure that the business is being represented as is intended.
Right, and then that hopefully filters out into the community.
Right.
How do your clients now versus when you started find you, or how do you find them?
Right. So 18 years ago and now are very different, very, very different. And in promotion materials 18 years ago, it was your phone number and your website. And the website was the novel. It was like, wow, we have a web page. And back in '98, opening the studio, Pilates was just starting to become more mainstream known. And when we opened in 1998, the Washington Post did an article, and people didn't email you. They called you if they wanted to schedule. And we couldn't get calls out because we had so many calls coming in. We had a wait list of 200 people. It was unbelievable. So some of that was just pure, perfect timing. You know?
Yeah.
Now, fast forward 18 years, there are lots of things that are different. The Pilates community has changed. There's a lot more out there being offered. When we opened, we were the only studio, traditional studio in DC. Now there's a lot more out there. There's a lot more competition and a lot of variations on the theme in competition. And then there's also people reach out differently. They email now, they social media. Still, internet is an excellent, outstanding source for us, and then word of mouth through current clients. And then also just work that I have done to get people in the community to know the business, getting to know other business owners, other people who work with bodies, that sounds silly, but the human body.
Right.
So doctors, acupuncturists, chiropractors, getting them to understand what we do, and they often refer people to us. And we do.
Does that mean
well.
then that you were involved in the community in terms of chambers of commerce or other types of outreach?
I am on the board of the local business affiliation that's here in West Annapolis. I do make effort to get to know and introduce myself to a lot of businesses. I participate in invitations such as yours. I try to go out into the community and get to know people, take advantage of events that are coming up, and how can I just, real down to the grassroots get to know people.
Do you give presentations too? Let's say
Sometimes.
at the, I would imagine, hospital or some other healthcare facility?
Yeah, sometimes, and I've been invited to participate at some events, and I do that just to let people know about what Pilates is in general, and then of course let them know what we do here.
Right, right. Well, I really appreciate all your insights. Any closing advice that you may have read about, received from a business associate or a mentor?
There was an article that came through in, I get these articles through my workers' compensation insurance company. They just send these interesting articles, and one was about a man who decided to own his own business, and it was a small business, and he talked about the subculture and how you're kind of always, tied to your business, and why does he do this? And then when he realized the benefits of it, he could understand that, some of the benefits being flexibility in schedule, flexibility being available for your family, like the pros and the cons. So I think going into business, you have to understand it's not all great and it's not all awful, and it's going to ebb and flow. And if you can just find that somewhere along the way there's a balance with the pros and the cons, you're all good. But don't get discouraged if you're just hanging out in the cons valley for a little bit. Don't be disillusioned if everything's great. It's about the balance of the two.
Right.
And just stay with your mission and your clarity, and then just know that as long as you're seeing some balance with it, all is good.
Absolutely. Great advice, especially that reference again to mission. A lot of people start a company without a formalized vision and mission statement, and that may ultimately end up causing trouble because they're not quite sure when should I pivot or not. And as we mentioned earlier, how you pivot and when you pivot is very important and is tied to what is your mission to start with. So thank you so much, Carrie, for having us today. I really appreciate it. And hopefully some of our viewers out here will have learned some great things from Carrie's advice. Thank you.
Thank you.